On Billboard tonight, filmmaker Micky Parson returns to Lincolnshire, Frankie Howard's secret life revealed, and Keanu Reeves revisits The Matrix. Welcome to Billboard with me, Ted Stanley, for our monthly roundup of arts and entertainment in East Yorkshire and Lincolnshire. Music, theatre, films and art all feature on tonight's show. But first, literature, as journalist and broadcaster Hugh Richards reviews some of the latest book releases.
Thanks, Ted. We're a rotten lot, we British, according to Caroline Elkin's new history of the British Empire, a conclusion she expresses immediately in the title, Legacy of Violence. She reviews 2 centuries of force, coercion and fear imposed by a white master race on indigenous peoples on 4 continents. It's a comprehensive and systematic indictment of deliberate brutality. Her case is strengthened by the British insistence on burning their records before withdrawing from the colonies. The British myth of the white man's burden and a stiff upper lip were never persuasive, but Elkins fails to notice the few more benevolent legacies of imperialism, common law, long periods of peace and extended education, perhaps. And she condemns the British when most of the British were exploited just as cynically by a small ruling elite. Books of essays are rare and welcome. It's a discipline mastered by Montaigne, Roland Barthes, Gore Vidal, and most certainly by the famous Canadian novelist Margaret Atwood. Her 3rd collection, Burning Questions, has more than 50 essays on subjects including Donald Trump, forestry, technology, breakfast, and my favourite, an essay entitled What Do Zombies Have to Do with Authoritarianism? Atwood is knowledgeable, insightful, intolerant of muddled thinking and deceit. She's also very funny. Start this book early in the day. Once you open it, you won't close it, and then you'll read it again. Margaret Atwood would probably get on rather well with Dolly Parton, who has teamed up with thriller writer James Patterson to produce Run, Rose, Run, a novel about a young singer escaping an unfortunate past by forging a successful career as, guess what, a country singer in Nashville. I think Parton wrote it at her Tennessee mountain home, and not just because she's a woman. It is something special, well worth reading by the light of a clear blue morning or any time from 9 to 5. It's all about country music, so if you have a banjo, lean the book on that. C S Dows' new volume of short stories, Cherry Blossom Headshot, is funny, terrifying, and reassuringly amused by a prospect of science that might not be all that fictional. Full disclosure here, Chris Dows is an old friend and I edited most of these stories, so any misplaced commas are my fault. They imagine a future of Japanese corporate intrigue, entertainment in a world free of disease, confused computers, and a man who just doesn't know why he makes everybody so angry. These stories are clearly the work of a profoundly disturbed mind, and I'll discover just how disturbed when I talk to the author later in the programme. Ted, we lost P.J. O'Rourke this month. He was a reporter, essayist, commentator and author who was brutal and brilliant in his ridicule of the world, its politics and its most absurd people. He was always a grumpy young man who didn't get to be old enough. Let's lift a glass to his joyous memory. Strong bourbon, I think, and an illegal Cuban cigar.
Thank you, Hugh. Patrick was indeed an inspiration to all of us who strive to seek and tell the truth. I will be honoured to share a glass of bourbon with you in his memory. Salute. In other literary news, the 2022 Hammond House annual anthologies of short stories, poetry and song are available now, and entries are open for the 2022 International Literary Prize, featuring categories for short stories, poetry, screenplays and songs. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby and inspired by the theme song from Rachel McKenna, you can find out more at hammondhousepublishing.com.
Changes, changes. I am making changes for the better every day.
Both anthologies feature cover artwork by Lincolnshire artist Debbie Geddes, whose work can also be seen at the Hammond House Gallery in Louth, which reopened this month following a major extension and refurbishment to provide a larger space to display original work from local artists. Cleethorpes-born Micky Parsons began his professional career on the West End stage at the tender age of 12 as Kurt Von Trapp in The Sound of Music. He went on to become famous as member of X Factor boy band District 3 before pursuing a successful solo career in America, writing, recording and performing his own songs. Now a successful filmmaker and director, Micky has returned to his hometown to make his latest short feature film, 1881. Working with local filmmakers, Hammond House Productions, the film is being shot in locations in and around Lincolnshire, where I caught up with Micky and the rest of the cast.
So the film we're making is called 1881. It's a Victorian mystery about a female detective who went into prison because a prisoner has mysteriously vanished. Throughout the story, she's exploring strange happenings and strange events that unfold along the way, which gives us a nice twists and turns and curious corridor, candle-lit moments from time to time. Yeah.
Every filmmaker and director has their own particular style. How would you describe your style, Micky?
I like the old kind of Hollywood classic feel. I'm very much driven by dolly movements and cranes and that sort of movement. So the way it moves is more Hitchcock or Spielberg.
When you're writing the screenplay, is it driven usually by plot or by character?
That's a good question. I think characters are very important, but if there's no plot there, it can be very an artsy film. So it's important that it is commercial as possible. It has something to say, it has a hook, it has twists and turns, especially with this type of movie. I love telling stories, it's fantastic. It's such a great outlet for being creative. However, character is not something to be neglected. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the characters that are in the film.
So we start with our lead character protagonist, who is Detective Elizabeth Carter. She's a feisty, strong, female-led character.
She's really mysterious in a way, this kind of floating enigma, and she's always 10 steps ahead of everyone.
And then we have our next character, who's the warden, who's a stoic, trying out to prove himself sort of character. Then we've got a female Victorian doctor, which for the time, of course, in 1881 is not very heard of. We also have Reeves the Scarred, who's our antagonist, the man who's disappeared from his cell, essentially is a criminal mastermind in his own right. The actors have been absolutely incredible. I have to say, particularly their work ethic. I mean, I like to work very hard, and their work ethic have been absolutely outstanding.
He's fast, so you've got to be ready, you've got to be on your toes at all points, you know.
He's just so focused, he knows exactly what he wants, and he'll just keep going and going and going until we get it right.
Quite enjoying working with the team. I'm quite enjoying learning how a set works and the production of the movie itself.
Every aspect, everything on set has been carefully looked at and checked out, so it's all perfect. I'm loving working on this. When this film is released, it's going to be a magical piece.
So the film will be finished around March 2023. And it's a long time away because we're in March 2022 now. So, but of course there's a lot to do between now and then. We have to do a second block of shooting. Hoping to premiere it in Parkway Cinema. I've already reached out and he said he's already agreed to it, which is fantastic. So we're looking to do it in Parkway Cinema in Cleethorpes next March 2023.
Music news now, and some exciting new artists are adding to the talent available on Book the Band, including soul singer Joanne Mallons, country blues and ragtime band Itchy Fingers, and contemporary duo Lola and the Cosmic Getaway. We caught up with them at a recent Culture House event.
This is Lola and the Cosmic Getaway.
Well, we're a Grimsby-based band. We're predominantly electronic artists. When people hear us, they say they've not really heard that much like us before. So
yeah, and we hear so many different bands that we're referred to. Like someone will say we sound like London Grammar, and then someone will say we sound like Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah, or Massive Attack
it's
or
dead
something.
strange.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. Grimes,
Sylvanesso,
yeah.
Bat for Lashes, or bands London Grammar, bands like that.
And I like the older bands as well, like Led Zeppelin and Jefferson Airplane and that type of thing. So
you write the lyrics, don't you? And I compose the music usually. So
yeah. So it's like hand in hand, yeah.
I would say now quite hard-hitting beats,
synthesizers, yeah.
And ethereal vocals from Louise, I would say, yeah.
Three of the leading care providers in North East Lincolnshire have joined together to offer a complete range of services for those in later life.
Three organisations who deal with older people are all coming together to offer a holistic service where older people can get whatever they need.
We've formed it so that we are working together, serving the community, and we all have the same aims.
I think the benefits are that the older person gets a wider choice, and also it's about wider reach.
The new Later Life Partnership provides a full range of services and support to help you maintain your independence and make the most of later life. Coming up on tonight's show, culture in Cleethorpes, art in Louth and soul in Bridlington. But first, here's actress and busy bee at the Business Hive, Jo Taylor, with a review of the latest film releases.
25 years since our first run together.
In film review tonight, Neo and Tiffany revisit The Matrix, deep questions about the meaning of life in After Yang, and award-winning animation in The Bad Guys. But first, winner of Best Film at this year's BAFTAs, Power of the Dog. Director Jane Campion's Western Gothic psychodrama stars Benedict Cumberbatch and Jesse Plemons as two warring brothers on a ranch in 1920s Montana. Campion has adapted the 1967 novel by Thomas Savage to create a slow-burning, Ibsen-like story of dysfunction, suppressed queerness, and ultimate tragedy that will leave you piecing together its meaning long after the closing credits.
Once you get in the swing of things.
Set in a future that doesn't seem so far away, After Yang by South Korean director Ko Gonada is constantly asking deep questions about the meaning of life in this vision of a world that's not our own but not too far removed. When his young daughter's beloved companion, an android named Yang, malfunctions, Jake, played by Colin Farrell, searches for a way to repair him and in the process reconnects with his wife and daughter across a distance he didn't know was there.
Come on.
In the long-awaited Matrix Revisited, Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Ross team up once more as Neo and Tiffany to enter the Matrix and discover if their reality is a physical or mental construct. But the Matrix is stronger, more secure, and even far more dangerous than ever before. New characters and new challenges as the story continues.
After all these years, to be going back to where it all started. Back to the Matrix.
Our family film tonight is The Bad Guys, a new action comedy from DreamWorks Animation based on the New York Times best-selling book series. After years of being the world's most wanted villains, the gang of 5 friends is finally caught, and dashing pickpocket Mr. Wolf must broker a deal to save them all from prison by promising that the bad guys will go good. Under the tutelage of their mentor, Professor Marmalade, an arrogant but adorable guinea pig, the bad guys set out to fool the world that they've been transformed. Along the way, though, Mr. Wolf begins to suspect that doing good for real may give him what he has always secretly longed for: acceptance. So, when a new villain threatens the city, can Mr. Wolf persuade the rest of the gang to become the good guys? On DVD and Blu-ray, The Watchmaker's Apprentice, Still Life and Silence are also worth a look.
Dr. C S Dows is a talented local author and university lecturer with a wry sense of humour and incisive wit. Hugh Richards talks to him about his life, his work and his latest collection of short stories.
Thanks, Ted. Yes, I am with C S Dows, aka Dr. Chris Dows of Lincoln University, from the professional writing course there, and we're talking about Cherry Blossom Headshot, his new collection of short stories. Chris, welcome. Thank you very much for coming along.
Thank you very much for having me.
There are 7 short stories here, I think, and they range over various types of genre and subject matter. You mentioned the Japanese theme.
If you had to call it anything, it would probably be a relatively new concept called slipstream, which is just a lazy excuse not to be one genre or another within science fiction and bits of fantasy.
It's very violent, some of these stories.
Well, some of it is, but I've actually toned it down a little bit because I wanted it to be for as many readers as possible. And if I'm trying to flog it on my reading list when I'm teaching as well, I've got to be very careful about trigger warnings and so on. And you'll notice in the introduction where I bemoan the fact that short stories are really hard to write and then go on to write loads of short stories, that there are, in fact, trigger warnings included in it, particularly for one story, The Suffering of Angels, which is the vilest, most awful thing I've ever written in my life. In fact, I actually wrote it like that. It was that horrible.
It has a kind of a happy ending, though.
It does have I think it has an interesting ending, an illuminating ending, shall we say. And I'm a big fan of O. Henry endings in short stories. You know, like if you can do it, the last sentence, the last paragraph, the last line is the oh moment, or the, oh, you got to be kidding me moment.
You're a professional writer. You're a teacher of professional writing. What do you do? Do you do the sort of grey and green, I'll sit down for 2 hours a day and write 1,000 words, or do you wait for your dark and rather amusing muse?
One of the reasons I did the collection was because I was working for Games Workshop for Black Library Press for Warhammer, and everything shut down over lockdown. And so I was left with a situation by which I wanted to write something, but my usual routes, which would have been for either the Star Trek magazine or for Warhammer, for Black Library, they were basically gone. So I had the opportunity for a year to develop all these short stories that I'd wanted to get out there for quite some time. Some days I would do 500 words of usefulness, some days I would do 2,000. I wanted to kind of experiment with story length and also story genre and focus.
You mentioned Star Trek there. Present, current, ongoing projects?
I'm working on some short stories, hopefully for inclusion in the official Star Trek magazine, which I've continued to write articles for, non-fiction articles for 20 years now. And I'm also discussing a project with Black Library Press, with Games Workshop, that isn't an audio drama.
And that's the grisly, incredibly bloody, gory, violent Warhammer stuff.
That's exactly right. Everybody dies.
Cherry Blossom Headshot, where can people get their hands on it?
You can order it through bookshops. It's much easier and quicker to get it on print on demand on Amazon.
Chris, thank you very much.
The Cleethorpes Culture Festival at St Aidan's Church on the 14th and 15th of May features professional art exhibitions, painting, creative writing and songwriting workshops, stand-up comedy, live music from local artists and an exhibition of work by local people in a Grayson Perry-style project run by John Mooney.
The idea came to me from the Grayson Perry Art Club stuff, and I don't know how many people locally have watched that, but it was really quite uplifting, and the eventual exhibition that they did in Manchester was absolutely superb. So that's the idea behind it. anything from poetry to sort of paintings and maybe the short videos and those sorts of things. Well, I suppose it's to encourage people who have been doing artistic or crafty things at home, particularly when they were locked down, to actually share those things with everybody else. First of all online, by photographing it and putting it up on our Facebook page. And then one of the things that we're looking to do is provide workshops for people who think they might need help to produce something to sort of contribute towards the exhibition. So look out for the Facebook page, and if you've got stuff that you want to sort of contribute, photograph it or put a text file up there or a video clip. And also we'll be advertising the workshops so that sort of people can actually look and say, I'd really like to have a go at that, and sort of get involved with that as well.
Details of the workshops and more about the event will be posted soon on the festival Facebook page. Entertainment news now from around the region with actress and broadcaster Gemma Lidgard.
Thank you, Ted. Now, direct from London's West End, Thriller Live, which continues to moonwalk around the world on an electrifying journey, with 2 hours of non-stop hits from pop to rock, soul to disco, as the cast pay homage to a musical legend, with iconic choreography executed with flair, precision and passion, at the Embassy Theatre on the 12th of April. John Shuttleworth is back at the Hull Truck Theatre on the 21st of April with Blue Light Kettle, Rapidly Downhill and all the other favourites from his pre-lockdown tour, and some fantastic new ditties including Stay at Home and Protect the VHS, plus John's tips on how to cope with modern home life, from his new book Two Margarines and Other Domestic Dilemmas. And at the Riverhead Theatre in Louth. Also on the 21st of April is Howard's End, which explores the secret life of a legend of classic comedy. This brand new play by Mark Forelli is a glorious opportunity to see Simon Cartwright as Frankie Howard in full flight stand-up mode and explore the secret heart of Frankie's clandestine relationship, which lasted from the 1950s up until Frankie's death in 1992. Champions of Magic is an evening of impossible illusions and spectacular special effects from some of the world's finest magicians at the Grimsby Auditorium on the 7th of April. And the Blue Room in Lincoln is the perfect intimate setting for Noel Coward's famous comedy of manners, Private Lives, from the 31st of March through to the 2nd of April. Some couples may argue, some couples even fight, but Elliot and Amanda show them how it's really done in Coward's hilarious comedy, which follows two couples on the honeymoon from hell. And finally, Soul Sisters the musical takes you on a journey of success, survival and sisterhood at Bridlington Spa on the 30th of April. Starring Sugar Babes Emil Baraba and Bad Girls Nicole Faraday, and also The Voice UK's Wendy Harriott as Dion, Monique and Rachel, otherwise known as 80s chart-topping trio, The Fabulettes.
Well, that's almost all for tonight's show. You can keep up to date with the latest news on our Facebook page, and to make sure you don't miss any of our programmes, click the subscribe button below. If you have a story you would like us to feature on Billboard, email details to news@billboardtv.uk. From everyone on the Billboard team, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next month for more entertaining news, entertaining guests and great music. But we cannot conclude our programme tonight without a thought for the people of Ukraine, whose unwarranted suffering is beyond belief and comprehension, and whose astonishing bravery in the face of overwhelming odds is admired and applauded by the rest of the civilised world. Our thoughts and our prayers are with you tonight.
He